Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a horror thriller movie called The Platform 2. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie takes place in a self-management vertical prison with 333 floors and a hole in the center. Every day, a platform loaded with food descends through this hole and stops for 2 minutes at each level. Prisoners on the higher floors get the first access to food, while those on the lower floors have little to nothing to eat. A strict rule prohibits them from keeping food in their cells for more than 2 minutes, or they will face punishment. At the end of each month, the inmates are gassed and randomly assigned to different floors. Before entering the prison, inmates are interviewed and asked about their favorite foods, which they will be given daily. They are also permitted to bring one personal item into their cell. In the next scene, we meet a man named Zamayatin, who has ended up in this prison after trying to set fire to his parents' house. He is placed in cell number 24, where he meets his cellmate, a young woman named Perempuan. On their first day, the platform descends with food, and Zamayatin eagerly looks forward to eating his pizza. However, he is infuriated when he discovers that someone has already eaten the meat off of it. He then grabs a chicken wing, which belongs to someone else, but a man named Robespierre from his upper cell stops him. Robespierre explains that a group called Loyalists has imposed a strict rule. No one can take other people's food unless they exchange it. He stresses that it is essential to follow this rule to promote fair distribution of food across the levels. Those who break this rule are called barbarians, and they face punishment for their actions. Frustrated, Zamayatin demands to know who ate the meat off his freaking pizza then, and it turns out that someone from the 21st floor is responsible. Robespierre assures him that the Loyalists on the 19th and 20th floors will deal with him tomorrow. It is because, according to the rules, only the 2 immediate upper levels are allowed to deal with the barbarian. The hungry man still doesn't care and tries to eat the chicken wing, but Perempuan stops him. Seeing how desperately he wants meat, she offers him some of her croquettes. Zamayatin seems satisfied for now, but he warns the Loyalist that if there's no meat tomorrow, he won't care about the rules anymore. Give me that meat. The next day, as Zamayatin is waiting for his food, he hears the upper levels fighting with the barbarian who ate his pizza. It turns out that the inmates from the 19th and 20th floors have failed to subdue him, and now the fight has reached the 23rd cell. Robespierre then informs Zamayatin and Perempuan that if they are unable to handle the barbarian, the task will fall to them. Zamayatin seems too scared to fight, but there's no time to hesitate. Just think about meat, bro. Moments later, both Robespierre and the barbarian crash into cell number 24 while fighting. Meanwhile, in the upper cell, Robespierre's cellmate is frantically trying to get rid of scattered food. When she fails to clear it on time, the cell catches on fire, causing the woman to fall onto the platform in flames. Perempuan desperately tries to extinguish the flames, while Zamayatin just watches in shock. Shortly after, Robespierre manages to restrain the barbarian and tie him up. However, he is devastated to find that his cellmate has passed away. When Perempuan asks what he plans to do with the barbarian, Robespierre reveals that he will take him to the Anointed Ones. He then proceeds to talk about a master who laid the foundations for the rules they are implementing. Robespierre explains that a long time ago, the master survived an entire month without eating on one of the lower levels. During that time, he cut meat from his own thigh to feed the most needy, who later became the Anointed Ones, aka the ones who eat meat! After sharing this story, Robespierre wraps his cellmate's body and throws her down the pit. We then see some hungry cannibals devouring her flesh at the bottom. The following day, the platform returns to level 24, and Zamayatin mocks the barbarian by showing off his pizza. Then they begin eating, but Robespierre suddenly throws his dead cellmate's food in the toilet. Seeing this, the other two are shocked. So the Loyalist explains that the law forbids them from eating others' food, and no one should view their comrade's death as a prize. He then assigns the duo the task of disposing of the food every day from now on. Following this, he grabs the barbarian and descends to the depths of the platform in search of the Anointed Ones. As days pass by, Zamayatin and Perempuan begin to grow closer and start living together like genuine partners. They also try their best to respect the rules by disposing of the dead woman's food every day. But sometimes, Zamayatin sneakily takes a few bites for himself, which is noticed by inmates from other levels. Dude's eating someone else's meat. The next month, the duo unexpectedly finds themselves in cell 180, which is extremely low. The platform soon arrives, but there is nothing except empty dishes, which frustrates them. As the days pass, they eventually stop caring about the platform, knowing full well that there will be no food. Zamayatin becomes extremely ill due to starvation and begins coughing up blood. To make matters worse, word spreads that several rule breakers are being hunted and punished by the Anointed Ones. One of the targets is a fat man from cell 24 who used to eat a dead inmate's food last month. The other inmates ask Perempuan which cell they were in, but she lies and claims it was 46. One evening, a depressed and malnourished Zamayatin decides to unalive himself. He fears that he will soon starve to death, or worse, be punished by the Loyalists. He then stands at the brink of the platform shaft, wrapped in a blanket. This horrifies Perempuan and she tries to stop him, but the fat man forbids her from getting too close. He then urges her to promise that once she's free, she must find his children and let them know that their father always loved them. After that, he sets himself on fire and jumps down the pit. This brings joy to some inmates,
Cooked meat!
while Perempuan is left devastated by the loss of her cellmate. Following Zamayatin's death, Perempuan awakens in cell 51 the next morning. She meets her new cellmate, Sahabat, who is missing a hand from the elbow down. Perempuan assumes she's new to prison and explains the rules imposed by the Loyalists. Later, an uproar breaks out when they learn about a barbarian on level 54. The man was previously on level 2, where he used to eat so much until he threw up and now has killed his cellmate. Upon hearing this, Perempuan volunteers to deal with him, but the Loyalists stop her, reminding her that only the 2 levels directly above are allowed to intervene. The next day, they hear distant screams, and soon a woman's severed head rolls down the pit. The other inmates cheer, saying that the leader of the Anointed Ones, Dagan Babi, is punishing the barbarians. Later, when the platform arrives at their level, Perempuan and Sahabat break their bed frames and decide to go after the barbarian on level 54. When they reach level 52, the inmates are terrified and refuse to let them pass, claiming it would disrupt the chain of communication. However, when the 2 women persist, they eventually agree to let them join. One man stays behind to maintain the communication chain, while the other descends to confront the barbarian. They soon arrive at cell number 54, where the troublemaker is waiting for them with a sharp weapon. He quickly attacks one inmate's leg before they can even get off the platform. In the ensuing fight, he manages to kill a few inmates, but Perempuan eventually overpowers him. As she is about to finish him off, the man begs for mercy, claiming that all he wanted was enough food to recover from starvation. Perempuan eventually decides to let him go, and the man rushes onto the platform to go down. Seeing this, Sahabat desperately tries to descend for some reason, but Perempuan manages to stop her. Later, while the 2 women are tending to their wounds, Sahabat reveals that she has been in this place for 6 months. She explains that when she first arrived, her cellmate Kiaish explained the rules imposed by the Loyalists. The 2 women obediently followed the rules, even though they didn't seem fair to them. However, one day they came across a weak boy and offered him food that belonged to a dead inmate. Not long after, Dagan Babi and his men showed up to punish them for this action. It turns out that he was the one who severed Sahabat's elbows. When he tried to do the same to Kiaish, she fought back and gouged his eyes. This enraged the man so much that he tied her naked to the platform and sent her down the pit, where she was eaten by cannibals. Upon hearing this, Perempuan is terrified, and Sahabat asserts that no one can survive in this pit and that they must escape soon. She reveals that the only chance to do this is during the intervals when the authorities knock them out to change cells. Sahabat explains that she needs to find a way to counteract the gas used to induce sleep, which is a variation of sevoflurane. To achieve this, they need to keep going down and look for something called the drowned dog, although she doesn't exactly know what it is. The next morning, the women awaken to the sound of screaming and discover a naked dude tied to the platform, dongs out for the cannaboys. They assume it's the work of Dagan Babi and decide they must leave soon, but to their horror, the oppressor soon arrives, accompanied by his henchmen. It turns out they are there to punish the 2 women for breaking the law and fighting with the barbarian that didn't concern them. He reveals that those who enable these women are equally responsible and won't go unpunished. Dagan then announces that he will sever everyone's hands except for Sahabat's. Since she broke the rules for the 2nd time, she will meet the same fate as her former cellmate and die. With this, Dagan's henchmen start attacking several inmates and viciously cut off their arms. They are seen screaming in pain and begging for mercy, but the enforcer isn't willing to show any compassion. Meanwhile, Sahabat is forcibly stripped naked and sent to the bottom, where she is soon devoured by the cannibals. In the next scene, Perempuan wakes up in cell number 72 with an amputated hand. She then meets her new cellmate, an old man named Trimagasi. They introduce themselves, and when Perempuan asks what item he has chosen to bring, he shows her a knife. "I like to cut things." Shortly after, the platform arrives and Trimagasi begins to eat whatever he wants, disregarding the rules. Perempuan then decides to go down, and to her surprise, the old man also joins her. As they descend, they encourage the other inmates to join them and fight against Dag and Bobby. The majority of the inmates are fed up with the oppression, so they enthusiastically rally around her while chanting and singing. Sometime later, they arrive at the 93rd cell, where Perempuan notices a painting of a drowned dog and is shocked. She quickly realizes that this must be what Sahabat was referring to earlier. She then informs the group that they have enough members in their army and should rest here. The group agrees with her suggestion and enthusiastically climbs down. They start sharpening their weapons in preparation for the fight against the oppressor, while Perempuan looks at the painting with interest. The next day, Dagan and his henchmen arrive at the 92nd cell to deal with the barbarians. They demand their surrender and threaten to starve them to death by eating all the food themselves. However, the rebels remain unfazed, and when Trimagasi suggests that they will eat the loyalists instead,
"I'll cut them with my knife,"
everyone eagerly agrees in support. Dagan is frustrated by their defiance and decides to abandon them to their fate. In the following days, the group continues descending and survives by eating some of the loyalists. However, Perempuan refuses to resort to cannibalism and instead starves, leaving her increasingly weak. One day, Dagan's group has had enough and arrives at their cell to confront the rebels. A bloody battle breaks out, with inmates brutally killing each other, regardless of which side they're on. At one point, the barbarian Perempuan had previously spared tries to choke her to death. Trimagasi notices this and quickly passes her his knife.
"That'll cut pretty good."
Perempuan then stabs the man, and before he dies, he asks why the painting is so important to her. After the chaos subsides, we notice that only Perempuan and Trimagasi have managed to survive, while everyone else lies dead. Perempuan then notices Dagan, badly injured, but still somehow clinging to life. She smirks at him, saying that she could tear his flesh off piece by piece and torture him for days. However, she decides not to bother and simply throws him down the pit to be eaten by cannibals. Following this, Perempuan realizes that the gas will be released soon, so she tears off a piece of the painting and eats it. She then urges Trimagasi to come with her, but he refuses, saying he can't escape this prison. Shortly after, the harmful chemical in the painting causes Perempuan to lose consciousness and makes her appear dead. In another scene, we see some kids playing on a pyramid-like structure, all struggling to reach the top. A boy eventually becomes victorious, but two adults arrive soon, one of whom whispers something in his ear. The child appears disturbed, and they take him away from there. Meanwhile, Perempuan wakes up to find herself tied up with other corpses and floating in a gravity-free zone. She notices some masked guards in the distance collecting dead bodies. Perempuan then devises a plan to reach the bottom level and then seek an escape route. However, when she arrives at level 333, she sees the guards placing the boy from earlier onto a bed. Seeing this, the woman is shocked and worries that they're going to starve the child as well. It seems the facility keeps children as tools to manipulate prisoners and prevent any escape attempts. Perempuan contemplates whether she should risk her life to save him or escape the place. In the end, she decides to do the right thing and helps the unconscious boy. They descend together to the bottom, and on the way, she repeatedly hits her head against the side of the prison, losing a lot of blood. In the final scene, the two arrive at the bottom of the pit, where a group of cannibals greets them. Surprisingly, they do not attack her, and a woman tells Perempuan that her journey is over. However, the child still has to live and has a chance to get away. Perempuan is confused, but she reluctantly climbs down from the platform and joins the cannibals. The movie then comes to an end as the platform ascends back to the top, carrying the boy with it. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.